Guess what I got for Christmas? Washington football. No, Bills. Oh, you did? The only New York team, man.
Oh, there you go. That's right. Especially the NFC East team you get.
My name is Ann Pearl, and I will be your worship associate today. Please rise as you are willing or able and join us in our song of gathering, Immortal Love, number 10 in your grade hymnal.
Good morning. My name is Linda Carolus, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. Welcome to the UU Congregation of the Hudson Valley. Whether you've been with this congregation a decade or more, or this is your first time visiting, we welcome you. Whatever the faith and traditions of your past, we welcome you. Whatever your theological stance, we welcome you. Whoever you are, and whoever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your heritage, we welcome you. We respectfully acknowledge the territory on which our church building sits as the ancestral homeland of the Munsee, Lenape, and Waukesha people. For the most up-to-date information, refer to our legalese newsletter and check our website frequently. The website is also a place where you can find contact information for our staff, our board of trustees, and other congregational leaders. And please join us for conversation after the service. If you are present in the sanctuary and the weather permits, you can join us in the parking lot. It's a little cold today. If you're watching the live stream, the link for a Zoom coffee hour can be found in the Saturday reminder of your email. If you were just recently joining us and would like to receive our weekly e-news, please email us with your name and we'll make sure you're added to our e-news list. We can also answer any questions you might have. Please silence your cell phones at this time. And once again, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Hudson Valley.
This morning, we once again welcome Benjamin Van Dyne as our guest teacher. Benjamin is a PhD student in theology at Fordham University, where his work focuses on white and Christian supremacy and social solidarity in the face of violence and suffering. He is a graduate of the University of Virginia and works as a community organizer in Indiana, Kentucky, Virginia, New York City, and Long Island before attending Union Theological Seminary, where he graduated with his Master of Divinity. He was raised in the Union Church of Arlington, Virginia, and continues to be active in local church communities. He lives in the Bronx with his 2 children. Please welcome Benjamin Van Dyne.
Well, thank you all. Good morning and Merry Christmas. Our words of invocation are some ancient and anonymous words. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying.
Our chalice lighting today is by Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We like to speak in of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the light we share together. Now please join me in saying the unison affirmation. The words are written in your order of service. Inspired by love, our mission is to seek our true nature, connect deeply and openly, and act for justice. Let us now bear witness to the joys and sorrows experienced in our community. If you have a personally significant joy or sorrow that you are willing to share, please come up to the microphone to my left, your right, and speak it loudly and clearly so that even with your mask on, we can all hear you. The microphone will allow our friends watching virtually to hear what you're saying. I would like a candle for each. When you're done speaking, please use the center aisle to return to your seat. If you would prefer to only have a candle lit without speaking, please just stand and I will light a candle for you.
Hi, I'm Nora, and I have a sorrow that 4 members of my extended family were diagnosed with COVID this past week, and so we did not get together for the first time in my life.
We also acknowledge all the unspoken joys and sorrows held within the sanctuary of our hearts, and all those people who have yet to find a spiritual home where they too can share their joys and sorrows. And I will light a candle for each of those.
I invite you now to settle into your chair for a moment of meditation and prayer, spoken at first and then silent. Settle in a little more comfortably. you'd like, you can close your eyes. Breathe deeply. Breathe out slowly. You feel your breath there gathering inside your own mask. That's okay. That's what this feels like right now. It's a reminder of how close our breath really is. And while you breathe, hear these words from Max Kuss. When love is felt, or fear is known, when holidays and holy days and such times come, when anniversaries arrive by calendar or by consciousness, when seasons come as seasons do, old and known, but somehow new, when lives are born or people die, when something's sacred sense is in soil or in sky, mark the time. Respond with thought or prayer or smile or grief. Let nothing living slip between the fingers of the mind. For all these are holy things we will not, cannot find again. Now please join in singing our hymn, Rising as You Are Able, in body or in spirit, number 108, in your great hymnal, My Life Flows On in Endless Song. Well, good morning once again. It is good to be with you this day after Christmas. This morning, I would like to think together and talk together and maybe even feel together about joy. And if you're like me, you may be asking, more joy? The day after Christmas? It's an occupational hazard of preaching to not quite know whether something is a movement of spirit or just my own bad mood, but more joy. Even when I'm not overjoyed, just overjoyed. I find this a difficult subject to talk about. My own custom is to preach and probably also just to talk about things that are difficult or painful. And even when I preach on something that should be a happy subject, my tendency is to analyze, to undermine, to find the ways in which something that seems good can be pernicious after all, can be wrapped up in hypocrisy or social domination. I remember being asked to preach on the subject of blessing. And I said, yes, I'm happy to do it, but you should know I'm opposed. And I think many of us this Christmas, even as we sing words like joy to the world, are conscious of the ways those words can ring a little hollow. I take great delight in the cynical edge of the title of a book on parenting I heard about once, All Joy and No Fun. So what is joy? This more than well-being or gladness? This sensation beyond glee or exhilaration? What was this joy I felt, in my case, when my children were born? Moments infused with pain and even fear, physical, psychological, and emotional. The moment that we sing joy to the world about is recorded in the Christian scriptures as a moment when basically everyone was afraid. When experience can bring us to joy like that. When we sing, when we see a thousand-eyed creature, when we live in a pandemic-ridden world, and yet we can sing of joy. I don't know what it is for you. I scarcely think I know what it is for me, but I think that's the question. What experience brings you to that ultimate source of liveliness where you know, without question, your connection to the all of sweet joy in this painful and troubling world? I know for me it is easy to forget. If life can sometimes be all joy and no fun, then sometimes I catch myself having no fun and assuming that it's okay because somewhere I must have joy. So this morning, a slightly different tack. I want to stretch my joy muscle a little bit, and I hope you will stretch it with me. The word joy itself certainly evokes feelings of pleasure and delight. Joy has been written about as both our elated response to feelings of happiness, experiences of pleasure and abundance, as well as the pure and simple delight in simply being alive. And so joy is not simply an emotion, but a sensual connection, involving the body as a sensing organ, rather than a mere shell for thinking and feeling. Joy reminds us we are not mere thought, not a ghost in a machine. Joy reminds us we are creatures of blood and flesh and bone, as well as of heart and spirit. And joy breaks down those barriers. For those shepherds in that field, there was no time to think about which part of them was responding to the angel. It was simply an angel in their midst. Joy is something that is everywhere and yet hard to capture. Eluding words and describable only with the kinds of non-words we use to portray sounds and sensations combined. Joy is a whoosh. The charge and flow of delight in observing delight in others. The exuberance of a puppy or a child playing, in the sparkling light playing across ripples of water. Last night, my kids were sleeping at my parents' house for Christmas, and before I went to bed and left them in the care of my parents, they were in the middle of a children's dance party to Donna Summer's. That's a moment I think about. Joy is the overriding and enriching sensation of being in the presence of someone we love, or thinking of someone we love, and allowing ourselves to be lifted and transformed. For those whose religious attention is drawn Godward, joy emerges as a connection to God. The Catholic saint Teresa of Avila is known for her description of ecstasy, where an experience of union with God manifested as a physical sensation of being pierced in the heart by an arrow launched by an angel. Now, perhaps Teresa's devotion to the Christian God is not something you can share, but something I think she can point to for all of us is the gift of a spirituality wrapped up always in physicality, felt like a piercing arrow. Body and spirit, not opposites, but united, joyfully one and the same. And joy, I think, breaks down another set of barriers between one person and the whole rest of the world. If our feelings we experience in our minds and our bodies, joy is more like something that exists out in the world and not in our own heads. Joy is something closer to a fact in a world than a feeling inside us. That same song, Joy to the World, I think begins to hint at that, when we notice in the lyrics that it is not to just one person at a time that joy comes. Not like getting a joy vaccine. That saving power comes, if Jesus is the saving power that the song claims he is. It is a joy that comes to the whole world that is ours to tap into. So joy emerges not simply as a statement of feeling or even bodily experience, but as a fundamental connection, a linkage of human with person, of all of us with earth elements. We are all of a piece, at a fundamental level, beyond the important differences in our histories and experiences and identities. Those differences among us, well, they arise also out of that unity that forms us all. We are star stuff, and joy both emerges from that relationship and helps explain it. Joy is more than feelings or sensations of pleasure and delight. And I think that's good news for those times when it is all joy and no fun. The source, the root, the ground out of which those emotions sometimes come. Joy is the primordial, the originary, the fount, the cause and basis for all that I experience and all that I do. We feel it, though we cannot locate it or fix it in space and time any more than we can feel or fix the Big Bang. So if life is sometimes all joy and no fun, it is good news that joy is more than happiness. It is the tender, complex sensation of connection we feel in our bodies and with the earth and with each other. The radical core connection that you feel in the body reaching down and reaching out to more than oneself. We make a joyful noise, laughing, singing, dancing, hearing Donna Summer, connecting to the source of all liveliness. We make a joyful noise by companionship with each other, through deep understanding of the multitudes within each of us, through the lingering of generations that culminate in our existence and are both each of us and more than us. It is up to us, to each of us, to open to joy. Joy is that deeper than happiness, that which holds sorrow and pain. We do this by celebrating, as many of us did yesterday, and as we do in places like this each week, by marking gatherings and food and music, milestones, hearing of birth and death and graduations and more. And we can mark joy daily by laughter and singing and dancing and Donna Summer, by simply watching and paying attention, by literally and figuratively jumping for joy. And every day, every minute, we, each of us, breathes. In the taking of breath, we are partaking in the joy of life. Exuberant joy, painful joy, terrifying joy, and joy never isolated and alone, never solitary, joy to the whole world. In the words of the environmental activist and scholar of Buddhism, Joanna Macy, basic to most spiritual traditions is the recognition that we are not separate, isolated entities, but integral and organic parts of the vast web of life. We are resilient patterns within a vaster web of knowing. And yet, she goes on to say, because we have been conditioned to view ourselves as separate, competitive, and fragile entities, we need to learn the kind of resilience that opens us to joy. Joy is a small word, a common word, used routinely but manifesting great presence and great power. Joy infuses our humdrum everyday lives with the glimpses of total unity and relationship which we crave. And joy reveals that what we crave is always undeniably present if we only perceive it with openness and intuition. Joy reveals itself as the underlying construction of our being when we tune ourselves to sense it and know it. May we remember that all life springs from a common source, a fount of joy within us, between us, and beyond us. As you remember today and every day that you are loved and worthy and welcome and needed, may you feel it so, because it is so. Joy to the whole world. Now please join, rising in body or in spirit, for our hymn number 298 in your gray hymnal, number 298, Wake Now My Senses. Now my senses hear the earth roll, feel the power of bringing home. Keep with the web of creation your love, giving, receiving,
Each week we make an offering from the bounty that we are blessed to enjoy. We do this in a spirit of love and generosity, aware that we have benefited from those who have gone before, those who in their turn gave generously. Our offering goes to support the work of love and justice undertaken by this community. Today's offering will also be shared with the Croton Cortland Pantry. Please refer to our e-newsletter or website for more information. You can make your donation in several ways. If present in the sanctuary, you may give cash or a check in the offering plate as it comes by. You may also scan the Q code in your order of service. From your homes, you can make your donation via credit card or PayPal using the links provided in the e-newsletter. Please remember to give a little extra to compensate for the 3% surcharge. Or, if you prefer, you can always mail us a check. The offering will now be given and gratefully received. Please join me now in the dedication of the offering. The words are in your order of service. May these gifts and the work of our hands and hearts give power to all we stand for as a community of faith. Please join me now in extinguishing the chalice. The words are also found in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
You really wanted to stay lit. Our words of benediction are words attributed to the prophet Isaiah. For you shall go out in joy and be led back in peace. The mountains and the hills before you shall burst into song, and all the trees of the field shall clap their hands. Go in peace.